Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph, starting with Chav Zayin Amud Beis, 14 lines from the bottom, 2 lines before it gets wide. Our Mishnah taught us that when it comes to making an Erev Techumin, you can use any food item except for water and salt. Agav that, the Mishnah had taught us in regards to Meiser Sheni. What can you go ahead and purchase with your Meiser Sheni money in Yerushalayim and eat that food in Yerushalayim? Everything except for salt and water. The Gemara then brought a machloikis in regards to the Meiser Sheni and states in regards to Meiser Sheni that there was a Mesorah in the house of Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish that they would use tzir, they would use the fish brine for Meiser Sheni that they would use to buy Meiser Sheni money with. Rabbi Eliezer said, no such thing. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish said the only thing that's excluded is water and salt, but you can use the fish brine. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't use the fish brine, but what you see from here is that they both agree they can use fish as your meiser for Meiser Sheni. Says the Gemara, "B'mai kamiflegi Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish Rabbi Eliezer, v'hani tanoi delekamon." Because Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Eliezer both agree that you can use fish for your Meiser Sheni. However, the Tanoim lekamon say you cannot use their fish. Why can't you use fish or Meiser Sheni? The Gemara will explain the machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda ben Godi, Rabbi Eliezer, darshi ribui umiyuti, v'hani tanoi darshi kloli uprati. There's 2 different ways, valid ways, that we have a Mesorah to darshan psukim. One is ribui miyut, the other one is klal ufrat. So the Gemara says, by ribui miyut, Rabbi Yehuda ben Godi, Rabbi Eliezer, darshi ribui miyuti. They darshan the first way, the first method of ribui and miyut. And let's read the pasuk in its entirety. V'nosata hakesef bekol asher taiva nafshecha babokar uvatzoin ubayayin ubashechar uvechol asher tishalcha nafshecha v'goymer. Says the Gemara, explaining this first position of Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Eliezer who darshan ribui and miyut. V'nosata hakesef bekol asher taiva nafshecha, and you will buy with the money of your Meiser money all that you which desire. Ribo, that's a inclusion. Babokar, ubatzoin, ubayain, ubeshechar, all of these are miut, is our exclusions. So if you stop over here, you have a ribui and a miut, whereby the only thing that you can go ahead and use for your Meiser Sheni money would be all of these things that are listed and those things that are similar to it. Then the pasuk goes on to say there's also another ribui. Uvechol asher tishalcha nafshecha. And of all that what your soul desires, chazav riba. So now you're left with a riba, umit, miet, veriba. Riba hakol. Riba says everything. My Rabbi, what does this come to include when you say everything? Rabbi kol mili, everything. Without exception, umay mi'et, but there is an exception. What does the mi'ut come to mi'mayit? The Rabbi Eliezer mi'et sir, it's mi'mayit one thing. Rabbi Eliezer says it's mi'et sir, it comes to exclude fish brine. The Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish mi'et mayim umelach, the one thing that excludes is the mayim and melach. V'hani tanoi, that's in regards to the machloik, that's in regards to the first position of Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Eliezer, who accept fish as being used for your Meiser Sheni money. V'hani tanoi darshi klali prati. But the other tanoim, the kamon, they darshan with another method of klal pratu klal. Let's follow the Tanya. V'nosata kes b'chol asher taiva nafshecha. That's a klal. That's a general principle. Babokar uvatzoin ubayayin uvesheicha. This is now prat, this is specific. And if you would stop over here, then you'll be left with only that which is specifically mentioned. However, the pasuk goes on to say another klal. So now we have klat, uprat, uklal. Therefore, you have to then judge the klal to be similar to the prat. Maha prat mifurash mipri v'gidulei karka. Just as the prat has explicitly fruit that comes from fruit, meaning that which comes from something else, and grows, gets its sustenance from the ground. Af kol priu pri v'gidulei karka. V'tanya idach. We have another brisa that explains the klal of prat to klal differently. Maha prat mifurash vladois haaretz. That it's something that comes out from the descends from the land. Then afkol vlad hearts, meaning anything that's from Maisa that comes out, and it comes out from Maisa Bereishis that was created. My beinayu. Ask the Gemara, what is then the difference between these two brisas? We have one that darshans klal v'fad klal, and the other darshans klal v'fad klal. So what's the distinction between the difference between the two? When one comes out with one as being pri v'gidulei karka, whereas the other one says it's vlad uvladois haaretz. Omar Abaye dogim ika benayu. The difference between them is dogim. Whether you learn dogim is one of the things that the Meiser Sheni could then buy. Laman omar pri v'gidulei karka. Hani dogim gidulei karka ninu. Dogim is something that gets its sustenance from the ground. Laman domer vlad vlades haaretz dogim imaya ibru. But the other one who darshans the klal v'fad klal and saying that it's vlad uvlados haaretz, that it comes from the ground, that which was created from the earth, that is not going to include dogim because the dogim are created from the mayim. Ask the Gemara, Mia Omar Abaye dogim gidulei karka ninhu. Does Abaye hold that dogim really gets its sustenance from the ground? V'ha Omar Abaye states on top of Chav Ches Amud Aleph, Ochal putisa loike arba. When it comes to then eating certain creatures, so if they're creatures that are in the water creatures, then you, even though if it's less than a kazayis, but you eat the barrier, the entire creature, then you're loike arba. There's 4 different sets of lashes because he's over 4 different lavin. 2 that correspond to the general lavin of eating creatures, whereas 2 additional ones that have to do with the water creatures. Nimola loike chamesh, whereas one who eats a ground creature, namely an ant, even though again it's less than a kezayis, but you eat the entire barrier, then he gets malchus, 5 different sets of malchus. 2 correspond to the general, plus the 3 that correspond to the ground. Tzira loike sheish, a hornet, which is a flying creature, he gets 6 malchus. You have 2 general ones, 3 that refer to the ground, and a 6th one that refers to the flying creature. V'im isan, if it's so that Abaye holds that indeed that which grows from that which is in the water does not get its sustenance from the ground, then putisa nami lilki mishum hasheret al haaretz. Then putisa should not just get 4 malchus, because if Abaye is saying that, what Abaye said before was that he's saying that it's gidula, that it is coming from the ground. That means it does get its sustenance from the ground. Then the putisa, which is a water creature, gets its sustenance from the ground, whereby it should get not 4 malchus, but a total of 7, because it should be the 5 that get from the ground, the 2 general plus the 3 ground, plus in addition to that, the 2 that are miyucha to the water. 7 sets of malchus for 7 different lavin. So we see from here that indeed it can't be that they're arguing about dog. Ela Omar Ravina. Rather, Ravina says, what is the machos between these 2 brises? Explain both klal ufrat and klal differently. Oifois ike benai. The difference between the 2 brises is oifois as follows. Lemanda Omar primi privi gidulei karka. Hani nami gidulei karka ninhu. This also oifois gets its sustenance from the ground. Lamanda Omer Vlados Haaretz. Hani Oifes Minare Kak Nivru. But the other one who says that it comes from the earth, that which was created in Maisa Bereishis, on the earth, that was not going to be included Oifes because the Oifes comes from the swamp. It was created from the swamp. Now ask the Gemara, why do each one darshan differently? Man de marbi oifois my time may. What is the reason why each one darshans the way it does? They're both darshaning klal lefrat klal. So why do they come out differently in terms of whether one says pri upri, that is going to be gidulim min karka, whereas the other one says vlad uvladas haaretz? Man de merabe oifois, the one that includes oifois, that means he's learning pri upri v'gidulei karka. Kisover klala basra davka. In the klal uprat uklal, he learns that the second klal at the end is essential, is the primary one. And therefore, prat v'klal, nase klal, musaf ala prat. V'israbu luhu kol mili. Because then you're left with prat uklal. And since prat uklal means that the klal is coming to, they basically say you have all of the things, which is not limited. You have first the prat and the klal that follows. The klal that follows says that you have then the general inclusion of everything. Va'ahanu klal kamo, and the first klal in the klal to prat klal then comes to then limit it. Limeute kol deloi dami le mishnei tzdadim, comes to limit it, which doesn't have these two aspects. And therefore, it's only pri v'pri, that's geduli min karka. Whereas the other Manda Amar learned the klal of prat klal differently. He says not this primary is the second klal, the primary is the first klal, as follows. Uman de memayit oifois, he comes to exclude oifois because he learns vlad vladois mina oretz. He learns as follows. Kisover klala kama davka, the first klal of the klal of prat klal, that's the essential primary one. And therefore you're left with klal ufrat. You have the klal and then you have the prat. What does that teach me? The klal ufrat. Ve'ein bechlal ela mashe beprat. You only have in the klal which is mentioned in the prat. Hani in midi achrini lo. You only have those specific things that are mentioned when you have a klal ufrat. But now that you have the klal that what came before, so it comes to then add v'hani klal basro. That comes afterwards, rather. The second klal comes l'ribuye called damile mishlosh stadim. The second klal says it's not limited to that which is just mentioned in the prat, but it comes to then include that which is similar to which is in the prat, and therefore you're left with the vladois haaretz, because that's going to then be dami to the shloshet stadim, both pri upri v'gidulei min karka. That's two plus the third that we're mentioning, vlados haaretz. Says the Gemara Vayter, Amar Yehuda Mishmei Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei Rav. What are the things that a person can make with the various items that he can make the eruv tchumin with? Says the Gemara, Ma'arvin befapuin uvachal galogois uvegudgodinyois. He can go ahead and make eruv tchumin with various things called afapuin, certain herbs, different types of plants. Not with chazis, which is a unripened type of tvua, which still remains green, and not with the knafios, which are unripened dates. Uvegudgodiyos mima arvin, asked the Gemara, can you make an eruv with gudgodiyos? V'hatani, it states gudgodiyos mirube bonim yoichlu, chasuche bonim lo yoichlu. Only those who have many children can eat it. But this gudgodiyos, this coriander, is harmful for the seed, for the semen of a person, whereby if he doesn't have children, he shall not eat it. V'im huksho lezera. And if it becomes hard, meaning the stalks become hardened, then it's even dangerous for those who have many children. So therefore, why can you go ahead and ma'arev, make eruv techumin with this type of coriander, if coriander is going to be detrimental? Answers the Gemara, Tirgama, Asheloi hukshu lezera muhube bonim. We're talking about those corianders that doesn't get hardened, and therefore we're talking about for those who have many children can use that for their eruv techumin. V'ibois emo. Alternatively, you can say la'olam lechasuche bonim. Deho chazu lemerube bonim. Even for those who do not have children, can use it for their erev tachumim, because since it's going to be fitting to be used for those who do have children, therefore it'll be valid. Milotna, don't we teach that principle in the Mishnah? Ma'arvin lenazir beyayin u'lisrael betruma. That even the nazir who cannot drink wine or ate anything from grape derivatives, so you cannot drink wine, still you can use the wine for your erev techumin. And also a Yisrael, although he cannot eat truma, he can use truma for his erev techumin. Even though it's not fitting for him to eat, but it's fitting for somebody else to eat. So too over here by this coriander, although it's not fitting for somebody who does not have children, but somebody who has children, it is fitting. So therefore it's going to be valid for him. Or alternatively, we can give a third different reason why it's valid over here. When Rav said his din of this coriander was talking about a specific type. The one from Madai is considered to be not detrimental, and therefore you can use it as your eruv. As the Gemara over chazis loy, this tvua that grows unripened and it's green, that's something that can go ahead and be used for your eruv techumin. Ask the Gemara, is that so? V'ha'om Rav Yehuda Rav kishus v'chazis ma'arvin bahen u'mevarchin. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. V'chazis loy. Can you not use the chazis for your erev techumin? V'ha'omar Rav Yehuda Rav kishus v'chazis ma'arvin bahen u'ma'varchin aleim bari pri adama. The hops and these types of unripened tevua that is still green, you can use it for your eruv, says Rav, and you can make a bracha even bari pri adama. So how can Rav say before that you cannot use the chazis? Lo kasha, it's not a difficulty, answers the Gemara. Ha mekami de asa Rav le Bavel, ha lebasa de asa Rav le Bavel. Before Rav came from Bavel, he said that you cannot use them for your erev techumim. However, once he came from Bavel, he said that he saw that they do go ahead and eat these chazis. Therefore, he said you would make a beri pri adama on it, and you can use it for your techumin. Ask the Gemara, but Bavel have yaruba de alma. Because he saw that they ate in Bavel, the chazis, that's going to be then valid for your techumin, your erev techumin. Hare, just because they do it in Bavel, does that mean to say that that's going to be valid for everywhere else? V'hatanya, hapu v'haseoiro v'hatiltalin shezorin liyerek batla daita etzo kolodam. If you're going to have beans and barley and tiltalin, and you then seed them for the yerek, for its greenery, but not for its seed, then we say it's batla daita mikol adam. We're not going to then say that that's valid, even though he wants to use it for the green. Lefikach, and therefore zoron chayiv v'yakon potter. For the seed, it'll be chayiv and meiser, but for the green, even though he's then planting it for the green, the unripened greenery, it's not going to be chayiv and meiser. Hashechalayim v'hagargir shezoran liyerek misasin yerek v'zera. The Brisa continues and says shechalayim and gargir, that you go ahead and plant it for its zera and for its yerek. Then both things have significance, whereby asrin yerek and zera, you're going to then take meiser for both the green, which is unripened, and also for the seed. Zoran lizera, if they then seeded only for the seed, misasin zera v'yerek. So you see that the question that we're left with is that over here, how can you go ahead and say, because Rav, after he left Bavel, said that it's now fitting for an eruv, hare, in Bavel, just because they did in Bavel, batla daitan the kolodam, eitzo kolodam. Answers the Gemara, ki ka'omar Rav, when Rav said this, on top of Chav Ches Amud Beis, b'daganuni yasa, he's talking about a certain type that's planted in a garden that everybody says is edible, whereby such a chazis, that's something that everybody would eat, and therefore you can use it for your erev techumin. Says the Gemara, now based on the chazis that we said before, we said the chazis is something that if you use it not the chazi, the gargir. You use the zera, the gargir, you're going to be chayiv for meiser. Ask the Gemara, zera gargir lemay chazi. What is it fitting that you're going to be chayiv in meiser for this zera? Rabbi Yochanan explains the significance. Shekain v'yishonim shelo haya lahem pilpulin. Earlier, the people did not have pilpul to give a type of taste. They didn't have it as a way of seasoning their meat. Shoichkin oiso, they would take the zera gargir and they would grind it. Umatvilin boy esatzli, and they dip their roasted meat into this grounded zera gargir, and this would give it a flavor. So therefore it has significance whereby it would be chayiv in meiser.